7 days imprisoned and unlawfully deported because I chose to speak up for the people of Ghana. My name is Shalimar Abbiusi, and this is my story.
Violate her rights.
This was an ambush, right?
Check us here, Edema Honorable Sasu, our Medina constituency. Medin check us here, and Medema, aha, National GTV. Me, I made media, Ebra, Medin, Eda Richard. Ata, obet me afrem ABK, Majeso na media mount. Ghana, impayfua, yawo, ewa haseno. Kwa ya mi se, sa wu didi ako bia omu didi. O kekakwa bia omu wia, eho ena uho ehia omu. Eho ena omu shishwa winyamam. Eho ena omu djono uho. Nese undidi unkomu bia omutina biem anase bebi omu wia. Nese wote ukwana bina wawo ye upodjobodja bia anase woye wadwuma bi. So mubeku, sa ubayim, sa ubayila, sa ubayeden. Enfo bia ho, omu nyono ho. Omu mfa ho ne ne awubaye bia. Adenti ena mekasa. Lady out there screen you see, your friend Salima. Na Salima eye efi Belgium. Na obe represente eye ni country ewo Ghana harmono. Na obeye ni program wiye no eno hu se no. Neni age Ghana into no peso oyeden otena Ghana. Na ohwe lady ni so awtimu se owa akomapa. Odwene omo ne bi ho. Na ne dwumadie ni mu no lady ebenya TV so ejuma eye ya na oye presenter ewo TV3. Na lady eboa omo a omo ne bi oboa orphan foundation bebre ho omo no mo a omaye nhira ewo lady wey ensem. Na enam ne dwumadie no so no lady eko eye voter region emra omo ko ahoyehia mu omo ko ahokyere mu no okokohia eye chada na kwame bedi ako adodo no efre ne chada no okohia no na chada hwe ne dwumadie mu no ne okujeto ablakwa na ewo sa program na ase na ohwe dwumadie a lady edi ye no na omoto nsafre lady say no udwumadie no eso nipa odwene nkrofo ho ya hwe programs bebre nti sade a ye nu be ye dwuma na lady no so hwe ye na ohwe ye policies a eye chada ede ba no na odwen ho no si okay sade a obeti ase na omaye dwuma nti ase ni mu no okoko wie mu se obeye spokesperson ede ama eye the new force. Na the new force no jitu mu a omode no kire ye pe na ye immigration officers ane enkrofo no yanomfo no hwe ade ba ko ni se won ye de ahoho na chichiri kuro na ahoho nso na esai kuro sa ahoho no ko bogu kuro ni dimpa na okuro no so koso na mon kai hu se Ghana fo kura mutu ye tukwan kura chan ye fense hwansana inti no mu ye foreigners bibia ese mo kai hu ni se mu kuro no na mo ye den mo se no lady yo mu ye ni kire ye pe na omo ye se no omo hwehwe ni nyamam ne nkrata mu because lady oye ne nkrata odi ye adwuma ewo Ghana ha no sen enetie no residency papers a odo wo ha no etisei nti omeye nhwehwemu ena omo start eye omo process na mpese me bi se Ghana emla omo wa ha no invite suspect ena criminal nankasa na mfanse case nankasa no ya kire se ono na wa ya ade no sankrofo we no omu nyina omo punishment ye pe anaso omu nyina kwanya a yefa so ye de omo ko eye cells no anasa kwanya yefa so atutu omo ano no ni nyina eye pe ana ekwakoye mte se police ni be invite wo fio se ye hia wo police station a ekwanya police ni kra do be fa so no se ebia ye hia wo police station okay fine me de ma de today me wi ameba setro bia wo be di no emla wo kase o me lock me dan po keke anasa me fa de into dem ana me sesa me ho na ye nko no wudi agro setro wo be di wo ho no enya sa papa mfa ma eye police fu am Ghana ha no binum nti se na ye mla no etie moto nsa afre no musi mo pese mo hwehwe ne nkrata mu eno so police be na wom mu deteni nipa na se jama wo ko wie oye kromfo bi na mo yi na fisas we na mo de no ko we na ne lawyer ankasa eye lawyer Sasu ono na oye ne lawyer edema eye lady na omutumi kura okechele no lawyer ne say ontwe ha ontena dan we mu nenu beba no ho no na omayi ge na efiri ho na omode no ko baby fufuro na ni nyina nkonko wie a omu wie ye omu ye hwehwe mu wie ye no omu se ne residency papers no oma forge na omode ama no na lady no asembisa o oye adwuma wo immigration office enye mo officials na mo ho na abi na forge papers na de say ye no kra na forge de ma no na sa papers na o use no ono a na odu boda bia o show ono a na odu bebia o use nti e ba ne sen na hanko ade ye forge ye Ghana sa de no mu hwe ne ye yo cocaine na adane powder dio ondu 18 years kra na mo hye ne se onka se godu 18 years munye tumi a kwanya mo fa so yizu tumi no mu hwere ne ye o na tumi no enkita oda wohu ba wo no wohu ni awoba na ye wosa pani na wo hwe me na me no kasa no wohu se ne awoba na ye wohu yale a wo ba no wenya abofra ketewa wohu yale da no so ebi mu kra de bemu po de uko mu fie a omu de chain na ato abofra no nipa de se ne omu de chain na ato no otumi tie mu tisa aboa enna adwom boni a mo wonti enna misisi a mo sisi nipa nti emra ye appointing no pe so baba spokesperson ne pe enna mo sha se mo behwehwe ne nkratem emra oye adwuma e wo TV3 no mo ntumi anhwehwe ne nkratem nti afi no oba spokesperson ediama one political party no afi na mo behwehwe ne nkratem na mebisa o mo sampanyfo ni nyina wan Ghana ha abra voter region for kwa ahoyehia mu no wan enetum ko yi bibi kra boaye omo a omu ni bisa bi omo orphan wan no wan na mo be na mo de bo omo ewo ho ono no ye foreigner no wo boa na ode bo Ghana fo mo menye nhwe bribiye na yankasa na ye se ye kuro no adofo mo ma yenkonkohwe video no na yentie eye lady nankasa nenum asem emra omo yi no ewie ya okọ no kuro mu no yenhwe asemo a eye lady no edukoto udwa na yende hu nkomo mesho video no wa ye pa nti no ahaka krebi na ha nti wo hwe ye ba yo no so a obehu ye YouTube link no eda ho monom wo click so ado obekọ ekopie mu ho YouTube no National GA TV wo search nso a wonsa ebetimi aka na wakwakohwe full video no ho monom mesho kopie mu ho monom so a na wa subscribe edi aman ho no ye new channel ye de ato ho monom ni old one no asam kakra ba ho ntino ye be sure say wokwa na wa subscribe edi aman na wa like wa comment enso kire wadwen comment section ho monom na ye nyina ye hu dia ebetimi aboa yen Ghana ha me a medi jumedi ebra medi ebk ufram Richard Majeso na medi amao.
I went to Ghana for the very first time in 2017 to represent my country, Belgium, in an international beauty pageant. And I immediately fell in love with the country, the warm people, and the rich culture that Ghana has to offer. It wasn't until 2021 that I returned back to Ghana for holidays, and I fell in love all over again. It was when I was offered an opportunity to present a TV program that I decided to stay a little bit longer. But living in the country also revealed the hardship that was going on. The crashing economy, the despair on people's faces because of the inflation, the rising fuel prices, doom saw every day. People were in distress. And as a public figure, I do believe that we have to use our platform to create positive impact in society. And that is why I've always been involved in charitable projects and humanitarian work. Because the beauty of humanity is not in being human, but in being humane. Even as a child, I always wanted to help people, and I was always very empathetic. During my stay in Ghana, I've been involved in many charitable projects such as safe road crossing initiatives, breast cancer awareness, training programs for young girls, and then the Akosombo Dam spillage. I gathered my team and we collected relief items, and we decided to go to Mepe to donate to the victims of the dam spillage. It was there that I encountered the people from the New Force movement, and they told me about their vision, which is empowerment of the youth, industrialization of the country, and better living circumstances for Ghanaians in general. I felt that our visions were aligned. After a couple meetings with the New Force movement, we decided that I would become the spokesperson. A few days after, the first video came out with me as the spokesperson. And that video was so impactful that it reached over 1 million views within 24 hours. The voice of one woman is so powerful that it woke up a whole nation. Not long after that first video came out, I got a call from immigration. They invited me to come to the headquarters and ask me some questions about my residency. I willingly went. The officers made false allegations about my resident permit. I've been present in the media and I never had any problems until that video came to their attention. They told me I had to stay in the cell overnight. I was thinking to myself, is this really happening? I had to give them all my belongings. They forcefully tried to take my jewelry, my phone. They brought me to the cell at immigration. So many people in that cell, men and women together from all kinds of nationalities. And I was sharing my mattress with a Vietnamese lady. Some people were sitting there for 9 months without legal representation, without a court date, no hope for the future. The next morning, I was hopeful that I would get out. But then I was being transferred. I was asking them, where am I going to? And they didn't want to answer. We arrived at National Intelligence Bureau. They sat me in a room. I was waiting for hours. And then an inspector came and he told me I was under arrest. They would take me to my house to conduct a search, but they didn't even have a search warrant. My lawyer gave me the option to cooperate or to fight for my rights. And I decided to choose for my rights and to refuse the house search. They then took me back to the cells of NIB where I had to strip down, squat. I was being searched. I was being treated like an absolute criminal. I saw a document with my name on it and it said national emergency. What could I possibly have done? And it was also at that point that I knew this had nothing to do with my resident permit. I was given a prison outfit, 1 towel, 1 clean underwear. I was completely being stripped from my humanity. They took me to the cell, which was a horrible, big black bunker with a horrible smell. There was a stash of dirty mattresses. There was one other lady with me in the cell. She was an illiterate woman, and she didn't even know why she was there. She was in that cell for 4 months. No daylight, no fresh air, just the rotting smell of the cell. That night I cried and I was so scared for what was about to come. The next morning, they took me back to my apartment. This time, they did have a search warrant. But again, they didn't want to follow the rules. The officers were intimidating me, yelling at me. Before my counsel and my independent witness could arrive to the location, they decided to just enter my apartment. I asked the inspector what they were looking for, and he replied that they were looking for something that I forged documents with. They didn't find anything, but they completely raided my place, and I was transferred back to the cells. My lawyer made a statement. It's been 48 hours. You cannot keep her any longer without any official charges. What they did then was so conniving. They took me, pushed me in a van, and told my lawyer to go and sit in another room. And I kept asking them, where are we going? And then I saw we arrived at court. They called me to the stand, and I decided once again to stand up for my rights. And I told the judge that I had a lawyer and they intentionally kept me away from my counsel. But the judge then said that I would have to come back the next day with my counsel and they would have to grant me a phone call, which they never did. The next morning, my lawyer was present. That was the first time I heard my charges officially. They charged me for forging documents to obtain a resident permit, and they wanted to investigate me for my activities in relationship with the New Force movement. When I heard my charges for the first time, I pleaded not guilty. The judge decided that I had to stay in the cell for 4 more days so they could conclude on their investigation. I ended up staying in the cell for a whole week. No visitation allowed. They constantly intimidated me, and I wasn't allowed to have one-on-one contact with my lawyer. And I really want to enable the critical thinking of the people here. I obtained this resident permit through an official immigration officer. I've been traveling in and outside of Ghana, going through multiple immigration checks with this same permit, and I never was questioned about it. This same permit got renewed by another immigration official. So my question is, who forged these documents to obtain the resident permit? Was it your own officials? They never could produce any evidence to the court. After a whole week of imprisonment, I was finally transferred to court. I couldn't believe my eyes when I arrived at the court. So many people were protesting, voicing out for my release. It was during that court hearing that I was finally granted bail. I was released on very strict conditions. My parents were visiting Ghana at that time. They were so worried for my safety. And finally, after a week, after being released on bail, we had a new court date. That court date changed my life. When I walked outside of the court building, there was an immigration officer who shook my hand and told me, "Congratulations for winning the court case. We are revoking your residence permit. You're under arrest." They forcefully pushed me in a van. Everybody was furious because of this unjust treatment. I was being transferred back to a cell where I was kept until night. That same evening, I was deported back to Belgium. I wasn't allowed to take anything, nothing. This didn't break me. It inspired me to be the voice of the voiceless. Because if this is what they're doing to me, then how much more are Ghanaians and Africans suffering every single day at the hands of this flawed system? And I want to ask, if the legal system be overruled by the call of one single person, are we really living in a democracy? I hope that my story can be a testimony of resilience and inspire people to not give up, to not be a victim, but be a conqueror and a survivor.